One of these will work. Probably that one.
Can anybody read these?
I would hope so. Yes, you can. Warren H.
This shirt really irritates.
Uh-oh.
You want me to grab it, Prattle, while you're doing
Does everyone have a copy of the abstract?
Because I wanted to pull up the tab so we can ask people about it.
But I didn't want to be like, yo. No, I got some
Okay, let's start.
Alright. This chapter was about patenting, like patenting trolls and seed monopolies. Would anybody happen to know what a patent is?
It's whenever, like, say, I go out and invent something like an amazing invention. I go up to the government and I say, hey, I invented this, and they give me what's called a patent, and it's basically saying no one else can make this, like saying that they did it unless they give me money for it.
Okay, that is correct. And when it comes to patents, it's kind of like they kind of have an effect when it comes to monopoly, and we'll get into that later. Can anybody tell me some basic costs and benefits when it comes to having monopolies? Monopolies, shine. Patents. Go ahead.
It promotes inventions, or new inventions.
If I don't kill myself on this thing. And I can't spell, y'all. Okay. Go ahead. Anything else? Go ahead.
Okay. It also signal or individualizes it, like the person who will invent the to gain the patent. They it gives them an incentive to make something because the patent protects it.
So good.
Yeah, like it's definitely theirs.
There we go. Go ahead.
Because they have to disclose all the secrets of their idea, that it inspires other people, gives other people information.
Okay. That kind of goes on with this, but a cost, that can go for cost too. Okay. I just say no secrets. There we go. Go ahead.
Patents can create monopolies.
Yes, this is true. Anybody got anything else? Okay.
So what we have behind us, like, does everybody know what that is? Not what the item itself is, but what the document is.
It's a patent.
It is. It's I'm not sure what country. It might not be the U.S., but I think it's a U.S. patent since it's in English. And you can see, like, on the first page, it states that it's from the patent office, whose patent it is. It says somewhere, like, how long it's gonna last. Like, there are thousands and thousands of patents. You can see right there's, like, number 300,000 something. It's dated 1886 when the application was filed. And this talks about, like, the invention itself, like how it works and what technologies were used to create it. And then down here you actually have like a diagram of what it is. Does anyone know like what this is?
It's a lamp.
It is a lamp. It probably said it somewhere, but
It's a what?
it's a lamp.
Well,
So whenever like somebody invents something like an everyday object or a technology, you put in some kind of diagram like explaining how it works and all the components. So like you invented it and you're the only one that can use it, but anyone can come up here and open this up through the patent office. Or, during this time they have like written records and you can see exactly how the invention is put together and all the materials and how it works. And this is a patent by Nikola Tesla. He's a Austria-Hungarian inventor. He invented like the AC current, and he had thousands and thousands of patents for different items. But the cool thing about Tesla, and that kind of ties into the conversation, was while he filed patents to like get his inventions out into the public, he actually like made them all available for free. So he ended up dying like completely penniless despite all of his inventions. So like while he had the opportunity to make patents and keep them and be the only one who could use his technologies, he gave it all away so anybody could like write what they wanted to.
So this guy who created that's the guy who created the lamp who did that?
Yeah, this is actually a website about him that has like a lot of his patents. But like during the time he was alive, like he gave all of his technologies away for free. So like while he like spent so much time and effort like creating all these inventions, he ended up giving the public the technology, so he didn't make any money off of them.
So, as far as patents goes, they're of course they're good and then they're bad. There is a big trade-off when it comes to wait a minute, Shine. Wait a minute. Big trade-off when it comes to patents. Okay, I know what I'm talking about now. Okay. There's a big trade-off that's involved and it kind of bridges the way to monopolies because okay, so say that this is a patent and it's a patent for these whiteboards. I am the sole owner of this whiteboard, and I dictate who and if I let anybody else use it or if I just want to keep it to myself. And because I'm the sole owner on this whiteboard, I can charge whatever price I want if it's in demand. See, some people are like, oh look, it's a brand new product, gotta have it. And then other people are like, maybe not. But when they get to the price, it usually is a top dollar price. And because that's the only one. But so even though like patents, yeah, sure they offer you protection and they help inspire others and all this other things. Like a big trade-off that's involved was you actually probably would make more money in the long run should you actually let some competition be involved, because then you have the public has choices, and their choices aren't limited to one. It's either this way or no way. People like we as Americans, we like our choices. We don't like either this way or it's no way. And it talked about in the book that was a big trade-off, like your overall total gains in the long run would be affected because of the fact that because there's no competition, that you would end up like suffering a price, Shine, what am I talking about? Like a price cut because of it, for lack of better terms.
Yeah, so like when you patent something, like if you're the one person who has this technology, you can charge whatever price you want for it. Even if you're not going to be able to make any money off of it, you can say like, this is how much this costs, and that's how much you can sell it for, and no one else can sell it. So if people aren't willing to pay that much, just no one's going to buy that product. And here in the U.S., you can patent like just about anything. Like you can actually patent like medicines, like different kinds of like pills or medicinal technology, and that can like create issues, because if you create like a new life-saving medicine, you can patent it and have like the sole responsibility for it. You can charge whatever you want, and if people can't afford it, that's up to you. And the patent will last usually about like 20 years. So while the technology is made public, if other people can like recreate the medicine, like they still can't sell it. So that can create some issues. And then like after that runs out, that's how you actually get a generic brands. of different things like Tylenol and everything, because once the patent like runs off of it, other companies can sell their own version of it. So like, what would be some issues of being able to patent things like medicines?
Well, I have another question about like what you said about the time frame of patents. Like couldn't like say you have a medicine that you've patented and it lasts 20 years, like at the 15-year mark, could you start to like put in for a renewal or something for a patent so that?
I don't think you can renew a patent.
Oh,
You
okay.
just get it how it is. Like the government sets the amount of time you can have it.
So like after that amount of time, like it's just run out. You
Yeah,
can
it goes
do that.
to the public.
Oh, okay.
What was the question you asked before that? I forgot. I had an answer. Now,
It was like, what would be some issues of being able to patent things that aren't just like, consumer goods, like things like medicine or technologies? Go ahead.
I mean, like you said, the price could probably be a big issue because I know, like with some people's insurance plans, maybe they don't have something that can cover like a name brand medicine that is really, really expensive, but maybe they don't have like a generic that is more affordable. So they either have to like find ways around it or just not take it.
You know, I know like certain brands of medication like contain certain ingredients some people can't have. And so like let's say Tylenol was patented and like that you got the generic Tylenol, I guess you could say. It could possibly have something in it that a person couldn't take.
There wouldn't be like developments because if only one person can work on it, like other people wouldn't be able to have input and like maybe like the medicine wouldn't be the best it could be because there's not as many people working on it.
Yeah, that's actually a big issue you run into patents, because even though the technology is public, you can't use like any part of it and profit off of it. So people aren't motivated to like
Help.
add on to that like one product and make it better because they can't make money off it. They could honestly like get sued, like get involved in a lawsuit because they're working with technologies that aren't theirs.
Yeah, included in that is combining different patents. So not only improving one, but, having them work together. And they said that that's difficult. And there's actually businesses growing up to facilitate that, which is, there's positives and negatives to that. But
You have two different people who have like two patents and they can work together. If those two people don't agree, then those technologies like can't like fuse together.
Yeah.
Go there and back.
Recently there have been a few drugs that have been like bought out like the patents, and people have been like increasing the profits or the cost by a large amount, to where some of them are up by like 2,000%. So that's always a downside.
Yeah, so having these patents and stuff like that leads to like one thing that the chapter was talking about patent trolls. Because once you can have one person invent one item and like get a patent on it and sell it like to the public, but then you have companies who can buy out individuals or can like have people working for them like producing technologies to patent. So you end up with one large company that has like thousands of patents on different items, and it can be like a really broad spectrum of like technology. Like one main one they talked about was this guy who works for Microsoft. I don't know if I have his name here, but he produced and like looked over like a group of people that produce a lot of patents, like that go into things like making iPhones, where you have like maybe like a dozen patents that are like semi-worthless by themselves, but when you put them together they like produce a product that you can sell for a lot of money. And all these like individual patents could be used to like produce lots of other like smartphone or other technology, but no one can use them besides Microsoft. And that's Apple, but
Yeah, I reckon as the saying goes, if it's worth doing, it's worth overdoing. So you kind of have to think of a patent troll as that big old behind beefy guy just that sits around in front of on the back of his big old behind easy chair, and then he just you think of him as like the banker of like patents, because he has all these patents in his hand, and in order for them to have any use most of the time, somebody has to buy them. Or somebody has to at least rent them, because patenting the person who actually is the patent troll more oftentimes doesn't actually make anything with the actual patent itself. He just holds it. He's like, no, you cannot have any of my patents.
yeah, they're almost like rented out to other firms, or people can pay to use these technologies in their own business to like create other goods or use them.
they didn't, in the article though, they didn't put one of the articles, they put a kind of positive spin on the patent troll and say, you know, he's actually helping companies work together to form better technology that they wouldn't have before.
Yeah, there can be positive patent trolls because while it's a negative name, it can also be like a collaboration because you can get different like people with patents from like around and like bring them together to use all their patents to like create one product. It's just there can be a lot of negatives with it because once the like patent troll like has control of all these patents, they decide who gets to use them and how much like people have to pay for them. So like it's one of those things that can be used very positively, but it's more often than not like negative just to make money.
But patents themselves wasn't always around, and back then people had to do other things in order to kind of have a patented effect. What are like some alternatives that so the book talks about two alternatives that were talked about when it comes to like alternatives to patents. What's some alternatives?
Yeah, like there are other countries that like don't even use patents and they still have like thriving industries. Because like when we do have patents, people want to create things and make money off of them, and like other people build off of that and create their own patents. But like without them, like how would we have a market? Like why would people have like incentives like create things? Like does anyone have like an alternative to like using the patent system that could still keep like industry moving?
So what you're saying is because a lot of times patents turn into monopolies. Without the patents, you know, you don't have the monopolies. You have single inventors inventing and being able to make more profit and put that back into the economy, of course. So it just kind of takes away from the whole monopoly effect of how, you know, if this is mine, then I have a big control over it kind of thing.
Well, you kind of think of it as like this. Well, if there's no protection over it, if anybody and their brother can just pick up some random product off the line and then take it apart to see how it works and build their own, I mean, there really wouldn't be a way to having a monopoly with that.
I actually think that would be good for like inventing in general, because if anyone can make your invention better, then you would be trying harder to make it better than them. So that way it would
Increase
be a
competition.
constant. Yeah, it'd be an increase in competition and be better.
They talked about also trade secrets, so trying to keep your competition from figuring out. So Coca-Cola, although obviously mechanical inventions, it would be much harder to.
Yeah, because people can just like take them apart.
Yeah.
Because when you don't have patents, you have no obligation to like release this technology. You can just put it out in the market, and if no one can figure it out, it just stays your invention. But then you also run the risk of someone just picking it apart and finding out how it works and like creating their own copy.
I wouldn't agree with them because I think it would increase like the competition, but it would also increase the quality of the product. Because if you put out like a bad product, no one's gonna want to buy it, and then your competition will be able to overcome you. Like, make more money off of it.
Yeah, it's really a patent to an extent which kind of saved some hair tearing out because one of the alternatives they talked about in the book that we've just kind of been grazing on is where you basically, you're the first person that gets to. You put this product out there on the line first. It's like, and it kind of has a patented effect because, well, you're the only one there. You're the first to come up with it. Then you're gonna be able to fetch top dollar for it for a little while, but you have to keep on adding new products to this equation to keep getting a steady like high price flow going in because usually there's no protection on it, like we've been talking about, somebody can just pick one up off the line, tear it apart, see how it works, and build one of their own, and then there goes your the profits you were making because this was the only one.
But I think like going off of that is like when people have the option to choose between like the original or like somebody else who's just like putting out another product that's the same as the same as like, you know, medication. Do you want your NyQuil or do you want your CVS, you know, brand of NyQuil? And like there isn't a price difference, then you want like the original because that's what started it all kind of thing. So like that gives an incentive for people to continue to put stuff out without the patent because you want to be the original, and because once you gain that original title, you're going to bring in more profits than the alternatives if your prices aren't too high.
Yeah, that's one way to like keep businesses going without having patents, because there's a lot of like brand loyalty associated with
Right.
certain things. Like even if like Apple computers didn't have patents, people are still gonna buy Apple products because they don't want to buy like an off-brand MP3 player, even if it is like a little bit cheaper. So
Yeah, they compared it to like the clothing and the fashion industry, and when you think about, am I gonna buy the Walmart brand or the name brand clothing? And yes, some people will buy Walmart, but then you realize that it's not as good quality. It might look the same when you first buy it, but it's not gonna last as long. So it is still, people are gonna still go for the better quality thing, the name brand, but allows for competition with the generic.
yeah, like even though we have a patent system in the U.S., there are things like you can't patent, like clothing, like certain styles of clothing. So the fashion industry operates like a competitive system without patents. Like top line fashion designers will like bring their clothes like to stores, and they're already they're sold at a high price. And by the time the competition catches up and like copies their designs, they first of all have to sell them cheaper because they can't like pretend they're like a high end retailer, and then the hype has already died down. So nobody really like wants this, and then the designer just keeps creating new clothing, and they keep making like these huge sums of money on it. And the competition like can also make their own money, but it won't be like on the same level. But like, what are some like problems with a system like that, where you just constantly have to like push out new ideas? Very good.
Well, fashion, it's easy because fashion changes constantly, but with science, it doesn't move as fast, and so I don't think they talk about how people can't keep up creatively in other fields other than fashion.
So that's like one problem you run into not having patents. Because in like fields like science, like different inventors can constantly put out new ideas, but one person isn't going to be able to like profit because they can't constantly like every month put out like a new invention. So that reduces people's drive to like try to create, because they know by the time they come up with something, like everyone else will already have it out. So that's a problem with just like not having patents, because that's one of the alternatives I talked about, just like getting things to market first. And the second one was like how we touched on trade secrets, but there are also like a lot of issues with that. It's like, what would be some problems with having a system where people just tried to keep their like ideas secret?
What if it's only one guy and he passes away?
That's a big problem, like you talked about with Coca-Cola, because I think only 2 people in the company know like what it is, the recipe.
You also end up with like no one else can like benefit. So kind of jumping off of what Anthony said. So it's like, for example, if you're in a group and this one person knows how to do something, like a study group or something, but they keep it to themselves, now the rest of the group is like, they either suffer or they can't benefit because now you're keeping it to yourself. So like, you can't like expand upon that idea, and you can't see like what other add-ons could be put onto this idea.
But like, I know this is like really bad to like think about, but if those 2 people at Coca-Cola just die, well then the fake Coca-Cola industry would, I don't know, wouldn't, so like if they die, then the Coca-Cola industry, the real product, yeah, of course that dies, but that just opens a whole new market for posers.
Yeah, and then like we lose like the original Coca-Cola, because like right now all the imitators can have a product that like tastes similar, but it's not like Coke.
It's not the same.
Yeah, so while that's not something silly to think about with like soda, you could also have that with things like medicine.
Yeah.
If we run things on like a trade secret system, and the person who knows how to make like heart medicine dies, then you can have imitators, but they don't have the access to that like life-changing like invention.
And the thing with like the whole Coca-Cola thing, and it's not actual Coke, and I think it's also part, if someone tells you, oh, this is Coca-Cola, you're probably going to have that mindset, like, oh, this is going to taste just like Coke. It's like, you don't know unless you actually see the packaging. what it actually is.
Also, what we talked about before about, being inspired by other people's patents to create something greater, and also just the same problem as patents where you can't, you don't know, just because you don't know about this technology, then you can't use it or expand on it. It's the same as not being able to because of the legal system.
Yeah, so obviously there's a lot of reasons why like the alternatives wouldn't work, and that kind of makes the patent system like sound a little bit better as like, maybe like the better of two evils. But one of the biggest problems you run into is like monopolies. Like, can anybody like name some monopolies we have right now or we've had like historically that you might have like learned about?
I think it's the railroad.
Yeah, the railroad was a really big one.
I give you a hint to another one that it didn't say it in the book, but we all take advantage of it every day. You probably don't even realize it's a monopoly. Go ahead.
The energy companies, like Duke Energy.
Yeah, the energy companies.
Especially when they merged. Duke and
Yeah.
Progress Energy.
That's one thing you don't get a choice over. It's either when you're in this area, you go with this company, or you don't have electricity. That's just kind of how it works.
Yeah, so because of that, they can charge like whatever they want, because if you don't want to pay that price, the only like alternative you have is just move. Because a company could start up and people know how to produce electricity, and a company could start up and start selling it, but because they have their like patents and their like rights to this area, like no one else can do that, so you end up having to pay the price you have to for electricity or just not have it. Yes, ma'am?
Yes. So since we're talking about monopoly, I'm gonna ask you guys, okay, in the book it's mentioned that because of the monopoly, the total gains from trade will be lower. What does that mean here, total gains? What is total gain? Yes. I mean, why monopoly is not good, not beneficial for society? I mean, it had its good, aspect you already talked about, like protection stuff. But, economically, what is that trade-off? What's that opportunity cost there to have a monopoly?
I think, because what I read in the book is that they said in the long run, monopolies hurt themselves because the lack of competition actually hurts the companies themselves. Because when you have competition, that's like, it forces you to create a better product, but then consumers are choosing you like over other people. And I don't know, I guess I just remember that they had said that competition is good, is better for companies.
It's also good for consumers, like, because as
What is good for consumers?
competition's good for consumers, because whenever you have a monopoly, they don't have to try to get better and make better products, and the price will go up because they can charge more. While if there's competition, the price will go down because they're trying to outsell the other people, and the quality will go up.
They talked about because Monsanto has a seed monopoly, they're charging farmers a lot, and so the farmers are really hurting and they're really, really struggling. So it's hurting the economy because the farmers can't buy as many seeds. They're too expensive because of the monopoly.
There's two things, okay, that will be different, okay? Let's say we have two market structure. One is monopoly and one is perfect competition, okay? And how do we compare the prices, market price of these two markets, and also the quantity traded? So basically the two things that is relevant in comparison. One is market price of the product, the other one is equilibrium quantity, which means is the quantity actually traded in the market. So we know the price is going to be much higher in the monopolistic market, right? How about the actual quantity traded in the monopolistic market? It's going to be much lower, okay? So there's two things, and that is relevant. Because of the price is higher, the actual quantity traded is going to be smaller, and the actual number of people who eventually are able to enjoy is going to be much smaller than the perfectly competitive market. Okay, it's here, so I want to, and teach you guys a concept here. Do you have a marker here?
I think this is the one we're just.
Yeah, that's the one.
Okay, so when the book talks about the total gains, they did not really use the economic term. What they mean is this: social welfare. And that's what it's talking about. What is social welfare? Okay? Anybody wants to tell me what do you think about the social welfare?
Wouldn't social welfare be like the looking out for of the like general public kind of?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Others? Social welfare?
Like the well-being and social support for citizens.
Okay, well-beings. Okay, good. What else? What is social welfare?
That's what it was.
Okay. Any other ideas? Anything? Okay. Because I want you to think first before I tell you what is social welfare.
The benefits that
I cannot hear you.
the benefits that society would gain. Like, I don't know, it's hard to say it. I don't know how to put it into words. Like, the benefits that that it would have.
That's right. Okay. So, social welfare is the sum of everyone's gain in this society. Everyone's gain, the sum of everyone's gain in this society. Okay. Everyone's. But how do we calculate it? I mean, do we have to get a gain for each individual, add it up, and it's going to take us, millions of years to do it. So how do we do it? Okay, then we have this, formula here. We say, okay, the social welfare is just the difference of the two things. The first thing is the net benefit. Okay? I'm sorry, absolute benefit. Absolute benefit. Okay. That's the first relevant term. And the second one, minus absolute cost. Okay. So social welfare is the difference between the absolute benefit minus absolute cost. Okay, then what is this absolute benefit? Okay, let's talk about Coke. Okay, you go ahead and give you, a can of Coke. You drink it, you're very thirsty, and after you drink it, you feel happier. You feel more satisfied. And that feeling there, that satisfaction is your absolute benefit that Parallax gives to you.
I think he gets the thing in it moved.
That's good. Okay, so everybody hear what I said?
Sure.
Okay,
Absolutely.
you consume something, then you gain some happiness, you gain some satisfaction, and that's what we talk about, the benefit. And that's the only benefit that is relevant in the calculation of the social welfare. Nothing is relevant. The profit made by the CEO by the company, that's not relevant. Okay, only the gain, the satisfaction you gain from consumption, and that is the absolute benefit. Okay, so we know that now. Okay, then what is absolute cost? Absolute cost is pure cost of making this kind of soda. The cost of the raw materials, the cost of the labor, the pure cost of making it. Okay, so every one of this room, every one of you drink a can of Coke, and every one of you has some satisfaction, gain from doing it. We add them up. Then we deduct the cost of making those kind of soda, and that is the social welfare. So if you think about this term here, the price does not come into play, right? The price is irrelevant. Okay? Why? Because the price is a payment transferring from one individual to another. If you're concerned about the sum of the whole society, the transferring doesn't matter. It does not change the whole sum, right? So in the social welfare, the price is irrelevant. But what is relevant? Just a second. What is relevant is the quantity traded, quantity actually sold. Because if I sold 5,000 cans, then we're able to have 5,000 people enjoy this, right? The 5,000 people will have the satisfaction from it. So what is relevant and variable in the social welfare is only quantity trading, not the price. Price only serve as what? A signal of the preference. Okay.
You said that the absolute value is
Benefit.
the absolute benefit is subtracted to the absolute cost. And if the absolute benefit is the satisfaction of a product, how do you measure that?
How do I measure that? That's a very good question. That's a very good question. We measure it by comparison. We measure it by, let's say, you have $50, okay? You have $50, you can either to use this $50 to buy a meal, go to a restaurant, or you can go to a sport game, or you can go to a dance club with it. You can do all these things, right? Okay, and then we must have something we already have been able to measure. Then we compare the other things with that one. Yeah.
Thank you.
So would that mean that the measurement is basically, if somebody enjoyed it so much they went back and bought it again, would that be a way to measure it?
So basically, okay, let me put it, because, talking about measurement, this is really the science of the economics. It's really, really deep, I'm not going to I cannot use one sentence to describe that's what our job is, But what you do, I can tell you, every time you have some money you want to spend it, you're trying to maximize your satisfaction. Whether you realize that or not, unconsciously, and that's what you do. You decide to go to study instead of playing. You decide to go out to have a meal instead of eating cafeteria. All this decision based on the one rationale, you're trying to maximize your satisfaction, your utility. Okay. Yeah. All right.
Okay, so it's like, that's what comes out of having a monopoly, and back to like what we were saying, because I don't know like any other ones before we get into like the one that the book talked about.
You said energy companies, but like water supply.
Like most utilities can be thought of as like monopolies. Because you'll have like one for one area together.
So, I'm trying to wrap my head around this. So we're saying that monopolies diminish social welfare by.
Actually, I did not finish. I was thinking, okay. So we talk about social welfare. Then, what monopolies? How the monopoly going to affect this? Okay, how the monopoly going to affect this? Okay, so just now we talk about the price and the quantity. Okay, and when we know in the monopolist market, price is much higher. It's very high, and the quantity is very low, right? Okay. And let me give you, I'm thinking whether I should introduce you the graph or not. Okay, maybe I will do it later because probably too technical for you. Okay, so just now we talk about, the social welfare, and what is relevant to discuss social welfare is now this price here, right? This quantity. So if you compare this quantity with the quantity in a perfect competitive market, this is much lower, right? Because much lower, very few people able to enjoy it. So you absolutely, it's going to be much lower. That's why it's lower. And also another equivalent term in economics, there is another term that's equivalent to this, and that's the efficiency. So when the social welfare is very, very high, then the efficiency is very, very high. When the social welfare is very, very low, and the efficiency is very, very low. Okay.
Okay. Well, as we've seen like through history, like because of things like this, monopolies can be like really damaging to business, because at the time of like the railroad monopolies, you also had like monopolies on oil, all kinds of products, like right after the like Industrial Revolution onward, and it caused like huge problems where people like the monopolies controlled such huge parts of the market, everyone went to like produce products that were like dangerous conditions, and the government had to introduce like all kinds of laws to like put down monopolies because it wasn't working like for the country. But now like since we have this patent system, like monopolies are just inevitable, and that leads to things like the seed monopoly that this company called Monsanto like has over most of the U.S. right now. And actually we have a video from this really good documentary called like Food Incorporated. Have anyone seen it? We were talking about it a little bit earlier. Yeah, it talks about how most of the U.S. like gets its food and like what we think of like farmers and how they actually operate. So this just kind of like is an introduction to Monsanto. Before we started, like, does anyone know, like, has anyone heard of that company? Because they produce like a lot of the food in the U.S., like a lot of stuff in the supermarkets, and they're a driving force behind like GMO crops, like things that are genetically modified. Does anyone know like what product they like first produced that like started the company? There's something a lot of people use. It was in the book.
Corn, right? Corn?
They produce like a chemical, because they used to be a chemical company.
Oh, Roundup.
Yeah, Roundup. Like Monsanto, like they began their company with Roundup. It's in the book, and they went from being a chemical company to being like something that produced seeds and like controlled food, because Roundup doesn't discriminate between plants. It kills like everything. So Monsanto made this product, and then they made Roundup resistant, like Roundup ready crops. So then people, like farmers who wanted to profit from Roundup because it was such an effective herbicide, they'd have to also buy food they could grow that wouldn't be killed by the Roundup. So this is one of the trade-offs you get when you have monopolies. You produce one really effective product that like no one else can work on, because maybe someone could go out there and develop like a type of Roundup that only works on weeds but was still as effective. But because they have the patent for it, no one can do that. So they like this company makes the Roundup, and then they make the crops that are resistant to the Roundup. And this kind of talks about like Monsanto a little bit.
So they kind of get their cake and eat it too.
A little bit. It's only like 3 minutes long. We probably won't play most of it.
I like to ask you guys what you think about this Terminator seeds.
Yeah, we were gonna get to that.
You're gonna get that?
Yeah.
Okay.
We were just introducing Monsanto. Because the Terminator seeds are like even further down the process.
10,000 years ago, farmers started saving their best seeds and planting again in the following year. That's how seeds have been developed. That's how corn was developed from a useless grass for the most part to the extremely productive plant it is today.
The idea that any corporation could own a food crop, is a very new idea. And it wasn't until the 1980s that the Supreme Court said you could patent life. And that opened the floodgates, efforts to patent the most valuable parts of life, which is to say, the crops on which we depend.
Monsanto's a chemical company. They produced DDT, Agent Orange in Vietnam, and then they developed a product called Roundup. We started hearing rumblings about genetically engineered soybeans that could resist the application of Roundup. When the Roundup was sprayed over the top of it, it killed every weed out there except for this Roundup Ready soybean. I can remember when the first prohibitions against seed saving came into being, and most farmers were just absolutely disgusted with the whole concept. And it's been interesting over the course of 11 years to watch us go from utter contempt for the notion that we can't save our own seed to acceptance.
What happens if a farmer saves the seeds?
Well, Really, there's only one company involved in this now, and that's Monsanto. Monsanto is they've got a team of private investigators that kind of roam the country, and they've got a little 1-800 hotline they take calls on, and if they get a call and somebody alleges that somebody saved seed, they'll send an investigator out to look into the matter. And you save your own seed, you're going to get a call from somebody from Monsanto.
obviously a lot of farmers have a lot of negative feelings about Monsanto and the way they operate, because that kind of goes on what happens when you infringe their patent. Because they have patents like on your seeds and by extension like on your crops. So if you go and like save the seeds that you produce from like Monsanto seeds, then they will send people to your house to like come arrest you. So
Yeah, you've had a bad day.
So isn't that like what they used to do? Like before Monsanto, they would save the best seeds and then replant those ones. So Monsanto's saying you can't replant the best of my seeds.
you can't replant any of my seeds. Farmers have to buy new seeds every year.
So that they make more money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because the seeds contain like one of their like chemical patents. The Roundup Ready one, or maybe like a certain GMO.
Even if it's second generation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Because there is no second generation. Like once you plant the seed, once you get your crops, and once you like sell the food, like that's all the use you paid for. So yeah. And farmers have the option to buy like seeds that aren't produced by Monsanto, but like kind of how the article talks about, like they're not resistant to Roundup, they don't have all the GMOs and stuff, and they're more expensive and hard to find because Monsanto has such a monopoly on the market.
Also in that documentary, it talks about farmers who have chosen not to buy Monsanto seeds, but you know, the wind blows Monsanto's seeds into their fields, and Monsanto has sued them and they didn't even plant the seeds, it was just nature planting.
Yeah, this is one of their like recent logos. Kind of reminds you of like an evil corporation. But yeah, if they go to your farm and they find their like plants or their patents like there, they can like they have ways to like chemically identify them, and then it's like you're infringing on their patents. So even if it's no fault of your own. And another like link in that chain, you start with like Roundup, which is the product that they first produced, and then they produce plants that are like resistant to Roundup. And now that everyone is buying these seeds in their plants, they bring to like what the book talked about, the like Terminator seeds, because it's hard to control farmers like keeping these seeds. Because they're small, there are so many of them, so sometimes farmers will keep the seeds and you can't investigate every person. So Monsanto's looking into producing crops that produce Terminator seeds. Well, they'll make seed, but then you can't plant it or grow anything out of it. So farmers like have no way to keep any of the seeds. And then like what could be some of the problems you run into with crops like that, especially when like you have such a monopoly on the market? Yes. Thank you.
I'd be worried that some kind of disease would come and wipe out all the seeds and all the of that seed, and then there's nothing to keep on going.
Mm-hmm. Any other like problems?
Well, like she said earlier, you know, they could blow into other people's fields and possibly end up messing up their crops for the season.
It would drive the price of food up, wouldn't it? Because if you just have to buy Monsanto, like you don't have a choice, and their stuff is expensive, then you're not gonna sell your stuff and not make a profit. So if they did the Terminator seeds and you had to do it, then the price would go up on all food.
Personally, just to kind of throwing this in there, I would be worried about whatever it was they put in the seed to basically add in as a suicidal gene, because that basically what you can call it. If the seeds know, basically it'll make its fruit, and then it'll basically, for lack of a better term, die because you can't make anything with it. Then I personally would be concerned about the actual chemical or whatever it was that they put in there, as far as on the society as a whole.
Well, the same goes for the Roundup Ready seeds. I mean, that's a little.
Is it also something that you kind of gloss over? Like, this company still exists now, but they're also the company that produced like DDT back in the 50s.
Yeah, I like how they said calmly. They produced Agent Orange.
Yeah, Agent Orange and DDT is that company.
They just kind of breezed over that.
Which I wouldn't want to dwell on that either.
But I wouldn't like.
It's something the company kind of.
I just think that like
over.
it's kind of odd that a company produced something of like such destruction, like is creating seeds. Like that would be like questionable.
That is
to
a
me.
problem. There are huge things in legislature right now about like getting GMOs labeled and stuff. Because while like you have patents that you have to, you know, disclose what you use, patents on like how they said like patenting life is still relatively new, and because of the way some of the patents work, like certain chemicals, they're also operating on like trade secrets. So you might have like a patented item, but it has a chemical in it that's not patented. It's just kept secret. So not everyone knows like what's in their food. That's a huge issue. Does everyone know what like DDT and Agent Orange is? Okay, because it's bad. Yes.
And another I guess thinking is that like the reason why comparatively fruit and your vegetables are more expensive if you go to the supermarket or the grocery store and you see that compared to chips or you know all this other stuff, is because of how much they hike up the prices so that the farmers have to make money, and then the seed company and the processing and all of this. So what you're really looking at is if they do have these Terminator seeds, it's just going to keep on adding more and more for the public to pay to get these vegetables, to get these seeds, to get everything that's grown from the Monsanto seeds. And so now it's not just you're affecting the farmers, but now you're affecting everybody.
Because when the farmers have to pay more, the consumer has to pay more.
Exactly.
Yes. So like, what are some of the costs to like the farmers to have to buy these Monsanto seeds?
Most farmers have to buy them in large quantities, so they're having to pay a lot of money just to get something that's supposed to make them money.
Yes.
You're losing that system of using the best seeds from last year from this year, because I bet that saved like maybe not a whole lot, but it saved them some money, and so now you don't have that anymore.
And then another thing is Monsanto, they say, oh, these are the ones that don't, when you spray the herbicide, they'll be safe while everything else dies. Well, eventually those weeds are going to become resistant. And then you have another issue on your hand. Well, now we have to invent something else. And since Monsanto has a monopoly, no one else can be inventing increasing innovation, because Monsanto's like, okay, well, now we'll figure something out, kind of. And that's gonna hurt farmers. That's gonna hurt us. It's gonna hurt everybody.
Yes.
That and it would mess up the gene pool of like crops. Like I've noticed I think Sarah, said about diseases. Like if a certain disease came out, that would like screw everyone.
Yeah, or like to cover both of those points, like what she said about like not being able to use the best seeds. Like if you buy like a whole bag of Monsanto seeds, and then like you might have half of your crops that produce really well, and you might have like another half that don't produce the same output. But then like even if you made less money, you still have to like buy the same amount of seeds next year. You can't like fluctuate based on like the money you made. Because while Monsanto has like great seeds with all these good qualities, that doesn't like guarantee you're gonna get a plant that produces. Way back.
Well, they actually do that to like keep their market going. Because if you just keep saving seeds, then you only have to buy seeds one time.
Mm-hmm. It's true. What else have you done? Oh yeah, and like what you said the genes that Monsanto puts like into their crops. There's also people who are scared that they're gonna spread like to the weeds. So while like these plants are Roundup ready, if they like crossbreed, then like the weeds will not like be resistant to Roundup. So then like there's no way to control your like weed production or anything. Yes.
Yeah, it was interesting because Food Inc. came out several years ago, and it was like giving all these fears about just only having one type of seed, and so some kind of disease or pestilence coming along that's not protected against, and then also having Roundup resistant weeds. And the articles, which are much more recent than Food Inc., was kind of saying actually, yeah, those things are happening. They were right back then when they were saying these things.
Yeah, that's kind of the way of things with like, things like this. Because like when DDT came out, there was all kinds of studies that said like this is gonna be bad, but the effects weren't showing in the environment yet, so the Monsanto just kept producing it. And then we found out like a little too late that didn't work. So a lot of people think the same thing might be happening with their seeds, except like, well, we can just like stop spraying DDT, even though like it does stay in the environment for a really long time. If it turns out the Monsanto seeds, like there's something like really wrong with them, like 80% of farmers in the US are using them. So you'll have to like completely restructure the way you buy seeds again, because the other companies aren't there to like sell enough seeds to keep production going.
Alright, okay, one more quick question that I come up with before we actually get on to this, a couple of the discussion questions. Now that we've had this whole big discussion on the patents and their effects and the monopolies and all this other good stuff, do you think that overall, as a broad spectrum, are patents a good thing to have? Or should we just go back to the old times and work with what we used to have, like before patents?
So I guess we'll kind of have like two votes. Like first of all, like who thinks we should have a patent system in the U.S.? It's like 10 people. And who thinks just like you shouldn't be able to take out a patent once you invent something, it's out to the public? Okay, so it looks like right now we have a majority, like 4 patents. And then going off of that, who thinks we should have patents, but you shouldn't be able to patent, like they said, life? Like you can't patent crops or anything that's living. Okay, and then like who thinks you should be able to patent like whatever you want? Okay. So it looks like the majority of people think like patents are a good thing, but they should only be like applied to certain things, maybe like inventions or chemicals, because maybe like Monsanto should be able to patent their chemicals, but they shouldn't be able to like sell the seeds as like patented items. Do you have another question?
Yeah, let's get to the questions. Alright. On like discussion question 1, it says suppose property rights to new buildings were limited to 20 years, how would this affect the incentive to invest in new buildings?
Well, if it only gives you 20 years, if you're gonna put the money into it and then have to reestablish the building or repay for it, refinance it after 20 years, people aren't gonna want to keep, because their property right is gonna keep having to be renewed if they want to keep it. They're gonna be least likely to do that.
Anybody else got anything to add on that?
I just have a question, like, isn't that how it is? Like, didn't you say that's how it is in China, where, like, you buy a house, you only have it for so many years? Yeah, so many years, and then
Yeah.
it's not yours anymore. Can you buy it back again, or is that just, like, one-time thing?
After 70 years, you can buy it back again.
Okay.
You can. If they will be on the market, so you can buy it again.
Okay.
I think the cost of renting or buying buildings, like not building them but buying them, would go down, because you're not buying it for ever anymore. You're only buying it for 20 years, so it's more like a 20-year lease than it is actually buying. I don't know how that translates into what we're talking about.
Well, you kind of have to think like when you buy Monsanto seeds, you're not really buying them either. Because if you were just buying them, you could keep the plant, you could get your seeds back, but you're really just renting them.
Yeah.
You get to use the seeds, you get to use the crops they produce, and then you have to do it all over again. So that's kind of what you get into when you have like patents and you can't own the things you buy.
I want to ask something that is kind of related, but it's not exactly the same thing we're talking about. You guys know the company Kickstarter?
Mm-hmm.
What company?
Kickstarter. You don't know about it? Pull out from the internet.
I don't know what that is.
It's where you can.
It's a really cool company.
Yeah.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Anybody want to tell the audience what is Kickstarter is?
It's something like for the public. Okay, this is fun. To like produce inventions, you put up whatever you want, whether it be a certain product, a material, maybe a book, a company, and then you ask people to invest in it.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. This is some kind of like artwork. Somebody's trying to produce like some kind of book. These are new soles for your shoes, I guess, that like function as socks.
Oh, that's
Honey
awesome.
soles.
You know.
I don't. That looks really cool. And like, yeah, you can have videos, just whatever you want to put up here to like ask people to invest. You get a certain amount of time, you get how much money you want, and then you can back people. Like some stuff I've really been looking into has been like up on Kickstarter because people try to produce documentaries through it. Like for stuff that maybe you can't get public funding, like things that are controversial. You put things up here and people who care about the subject, they like pay you to produce the documentary. And you give a certain amount of money and sometimes they'll give you like benefits. Like if you pay like whatever, like $90, when they finally like produce this product, you get 3 pairs of it for free.
Oh.
Yeah, so that's
And
really
the payment only happens when the sum reach a certain amount, right?
Mhm.
Reach a certain
And
amount.
if they don't reach it, then
You
it
don't
doesn't
really,
happen.
yeah, so you're not paying anything.
So you get like your money.
Yeah,
back.
if they don't,
Yeah.
if they don't reach their goal, you get your money back because if they don't reach the goal they set, they can't produce the product. I guess this video's not working, but
That's kind of cool.
yeah, Kickstarter is really amazing because then a lot of like entrepreneurs who have products that companies might not be ready to jump on can still produce them on a smaller scale and get them picked up.
So this would be like the step before, like one show that I watch. It's called Shark Tank.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So this would be like the step before Shark Tank because you have to be like producing. Well, a lot of the inventors on Shark Tank have already like produced things and have like.
Yeah, I actually know like a few certain episodes like people started out on Kickstarter.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Because it's hard to get like a big company started from something like this, but you collect like a few $1,000s, you start producing something, you like put it out online, and you generate interest, and then once you have a small company going, you can bring it to investors or up to something big like Shark Tank,
Yeah.
and try to get someone to pick it up because you have the evidence that like this sells.
Yeah, but like if you don't have something like this, it's difficult to prove that like your product would sell.
Because then like all you either have is like you invest your own money, and then you have the potential to lose it if it doesn't work out, or you all you have is a prototype to come show them. And then the sharks don't care about you because you have no evidence that this can sell. They just have like a cool thing. So yeah, Kickstarter is really amazing. There should be a page where you can get like, yeah, all their stuff. They have like whatever you might want. Like I guess food,
Really
since
cool.
we're talking about Monsanto. You can try to get money to like produce food. This is a lollipop in the shape of the
Okay.
Queen of England's head.
Yeah.
Somebody-
76 people thought it was a
Yeah,
good idea.
76 people put together over $2,000 to produce this candy. That's wonderful.
Okay.
But
Yeah, but there's all kinds of stuff on here.
That's
Yeah, Kickstarter is amazing.
kind of cool.
Yeah, a lot of things fail on it, but it's a really good way to like get companies started. Yeah.
I like those donuts.
Yeah,
is that really good?
I think they're trying to get like French donuts, but yeah, there's all kinds of stuff. It's really cool.
okay, one more question and I'll leave you guys alone. If patents are best thought of as strengthening property rights, what are the other legal and institutional characteristics you would expect to see in the nations with strong patent laws?
What number is that?
That's number 4. No, excuse me. Yeah, 4. No, 5. 5. I can't read.
Oh, well, kind of like relating Kickstarter to this, it kind of creates like a little bit of a gray area because when you're putting out your product on this, like you haven't really made this product yet. You just have your prototypes and you're trying to bring it to market. So you put your product on here and try to get money for it, but you don't really have to put online like exactly how it's made, but people are seeing it. So if they really wanted to, they could come and like steal your idea and produce their own and bring it to a company faster than you. So while it is like a great tool to be able to like get whatever it is you want like started, like you do run the risk of someone like stealing your idea. Like whatever these two things are, they've already gotten almost $80,000. That's cool.
I don't know what that is.
Looks like we're getting a laser razor. So
Yeah, that laser razor, that terrifies me. That name terrifies me.
It looks like they're 3D printed, and they use lasers to give you like a more precise shave. There's like explanation. So see, they have like everything about it, like how it works, kind of like how it's put together, like how it's made. So someone could get on here and like make their own, produce it cheaper, and you know, if they get it to the market faster, like they're using your idea.
But like they already have a prototype. So like some people on this site like are using this site to create a prototype, but some are using it to like mass produce.
Yeah, you can have either an idea that you want to explore
Or
an
just
actual
Or
product
just
you
like
want
a
to sell.
product you need more money to sell. Because something like this, they have a prototype, but it looks like the materials would be expensive. You need like lasers and metals and things. So while they can put in their own money and create like one or two of these, if they want to mass produce them to bring them to market, they need more money. So yeah, because they have a whole section for technology, so that's really cool. Only for like a smart bike. So that's really cool.
The question you asked, I have no idea. I really don't.
I think it's kind of asking like what things do like patents bring to society. Like in a country that has patents, you have stronger property rights. Yes.
And I guess it talks about legal characteristics, and I think a lot of the legal, like we have a bigger legal system because of patent law is big. I guess.
It would also like show that the society like values a sense of ownership over ideas and like material things.
I'm talking about something like really cool, because every once in a while there's something like really amazing on there. Like
I'm
a
really
lollipop
interested
shaped
in
like
that
the
laser
Queen.
razor.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie.
Does anybody else have anything else to add?
Let's see, there's some big crazy stuff here. They're trying to produce like an app to assist like marginalized students in public school. So you can get some like really good stuff coming out of here.
Marginalized. What does that mean?
Students that have like maybe not the best grades or kind of like pushed off to the edge that like aren't getting the same assistance as kids in like honors programs and things like that. It's an app to help them to like, I'm not sure exactly what their thing does, but it's to like help these students. Yeah, so yeah, so it looks like what we got into is like, it looks like patents sometimes like are kind of necessary in certain societies, but they should be like maybe regulated a little bit more. Because if patent law is too strong, you get things like Monsanto where maybe it's working for right now, but we don't know what's gonna happen. So the whole like system could collapse. So patents are in themselves a good thing, but they can be, you know, run badly. And monopolies are bad. So Monsanto's really bad. But it's okay.
Right. I reckon the famous terminology "you can't live with them, you can't live without them" kind of comes in. They're a necessary evil. All right.
Yeah, I really dislike Monsanto because GMO crops are a good thing. Like a lot of people think really badly of them, but you can really improve a lot of things in like food production and people's health with like using them. And Monsanto's kind of using them to produce like, I don't even know, like I think like Pixar movies, like what is it, like By and Large? They have this like a giant monopoly over this and they're making it look bad. So I don't really like them, but that's what you get when you're on patent law.
Okay.
Very good. Very good.
And next on Thursday will be